In this video, I want to talk about distance between 2 points, how we can find it, and is there a formula or something that we can use to find it. So I have a point here and a point here. This is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. Let's just focus on the x and just the first quadrant. That will satisfy our discussion here. But so how far, what is the distance between these 2 points? Well, in the general sense, this would be thought of as x1. That's the place of the first point here. And then you have x2, some other number. Over here you have y1, and up here you have y2. Okay. Now, that's where they are, so this must be at the point x2, y2, and they could be any numbers. And you have x1, y1, okay? But we want to know what is the distance between these 2 points. So I'm going to try to connect these the best I can. So that should have been a straight line, but what is the distance between those two? Okay. Now, to explain how you find the distance, I'm going to draw a triangle here. So I have a triangle right there. And now we can start to see, okay, well, how far is the x part? And that's x2 minus x1. That's how long this piece is here. And that's true for this vertical here. You have y2 minus y1. That's how high this is, okay? Now, if you've taken algebra classes before, now you know that in triangles you can have a triangle like where the height is b and the length is a and this hypotenuse is c, and this is the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and we can use that result to discover what this is, okay? Now, what we're trying to find, we can think of as a c. This is kind of like a c here. So we should probably solve for c there. So to solve for c, this is c squared, we have to take the square root. So I'll take the square root of both sides. I have a squared plus b squared equals c. And then now we know what c is, and we're going to need to do that over here. All right, so let's try to find what that distance is. Now, I'm going to actually just call this d there. That's going to be our distance. Now, our a squared here, our a here is like our x2 minus x1. So I'll put that in the square root. And so I need to put that in parentheses, x2 minus x1, and that's squared because of the formula. Now, our b is our y2 minus y1, y2 minus y1 squared, and that is our distance formula, okay? So if I give you points, or if you have 2 points that you want to find the distance between the two, you can use this formula to actually find it. Let's go ahead and do an example and make sure that we can do that. So I'll give you the point 1, 2, and 3, 4. And let's find the distance between these 2 points, okay? To do that, we're going to find the distance. So d equals square root. I'll take x2, which is, I'm going to consider 3 minus x1 squared plus, and then we subtract the y's, so 4 minus 2 squared, okay? And what does that equal? 3 minus 1, and that's 2 squared, and then you have 4 minus 2, which is 2 squared. Okay, so we have 4 plus 4, and we have 8. And in another lecture, we talked about you can reduce this because you can say, well, 8 is 2 times 4, so that's 2 root 2. That's one way you can do it. So I think that was section 1.3 that we talked about that. Yeah, so hopefully that helps of how you can use this formula. It's pretty easy. It's not too bad. It is just another formula that we can use. So let's talk about the midpoint. So if I go back up here, I'm going to take away this C for a second. What would be the midpoint between these 2 points here? What is the middle between these two? Well, it's probably something like right there. It's probably something like that. Now, we can find that between x1 and x2. Where is the middle? The middle is probably going to be something like that. What is the middle between the y2 and the y1? Well, it's probably right there. So we can see that that's what's going on. Now, if we want to find a formula that will solve that for us, we can say that the midpoint, we can just simply take the average of the points. So we can do x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. If we average the x's and average the y's, we'll find what's in the middle, right? Okay, so let's do our example over here, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's find that midpoint. So if I do that, I want to average the x's, so 1 plus 3 divided by 2, and the 2 plus 4 divided by 2. All right, well, 1 plus 3 is 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 plus 4 is 6, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that I claim that the midpoint in that example would be 2, 3. Okay, and another thing that gets kind of confused in these is the midpoint is a point, and the distance is just a number. So this is a single number, and this is a location. Okay, and that gets confused a lot, so be careful with that. But I think they make sense if you've seen the x and y graph before, and maybe you've been exposed to the Pythagorean theorem. However, once these things are derived, you don't have to derive them ever again. You can simply use that formula, and that's what I did for a good portion of my education. Was that I didn't understand where this formula came from. I just used it. So I hope this video kind of helps you understand where the formula might come from, but yeah, you can actually just use the formula to find the distance between 2 points. And the midpoint, I'm not sure if I understood it or not at the time, but it's really just the average of the x's and the average of the y's, and that would be the average location between those two. It'd just be the middle point, and there's our midpoint right there. Okay. Again, I hope this helps. Please reach out if there's anything I could go over again, or if there's any confusion. But yeah, that should give you at least a head start on distance and midpoints.